So we had just finished reading chapters 19 and 20, and we know that this rat, Ruskio, comes up and kind of he just wants to be a part of the light. He sees the light as this great thing, as this thing that should be celebrated. None of the other rats see that. And just like Despero, he's looking into that light. His eyes are open. So what is going to happen now that he's made his way into this castle where all this light is shining through, and he's coming from a place that is in total darkness? The dungeon has no light. So we're going to find out what happens next. Chapter 21, A View from a Chandelier. There was, in the banquet hall, a most beautiful and ornate chandelier. The crystals that hung from it caused the light of the candles on the table and the light from the face of the laughing princess to dazzle and sparkle. They danced to the rhythm of the minstrel's music, swaying back and forth, twinkling and beckoning. What better place to view all this glory, all this beauty? There was so much laughing and singing and juggling that no one noticed as Rusco crawled up the table leg and onto the table, and from there flung himself onto the lowest branch of a chandelier. Hanging by one paw, he swung back and forth, admiring the spectacle below him, the smells of the food, the sound of the music, and the light. The light, the light! Amazing, unbelievable! Rusco smiled and shook his head. Unfortunately, a rat hanging from a chandelier can hang from a chandelier for only so long before he is discovered. This would be true at even the loudest of parties. Reader, do you know who it was that spotted him? You're right, the sharp-eyed Princess P. "A rat!" she shouted. "A rat is hanging from the chandelier!" The party, as I had noted, was loud. The minstrels were strumming and singing. The people were laughing and eating. The man with the juggling cap was jingling and juggling. No one, in the midst of all this merriment, heard the P. No one except for Rusco. Rat. He had never been aware of what an ugly word it was. Rat. In the middle of all that beauty, it immediately became clear that it was extremely distasteful. Rat. A curse, an insult, a word totally without light. And not until he heard it from the mouth of the princess did Rusco realize that he did not like being a rat, that he did not want to be a rat. This revelation hit Rusco with such force that it made him lose his grip on his chandelier. The rat, reader, fell, and alas, he fell directly into the queen's bowl of soup. And there's a little picture for you guys. Chapter 21, The Queen's Last Words. The queen loved soup. She loved soup more than anything in the world, except for Princess P and the king. And because the queen loved it, soup was served in the castle for every banquet, every lunch, and every dinner. And what soup it was! Cook's love and admiration for the queen and her palate moved the broth that she concocted from the level of mere food to high art. On this particular day, for this particular banquet, the cook had outdone herself. The soup was masterwork, a delicate mingling of chicken, watercress, and garlic. Rusco, as he surfaced from the bottom of the queen's bowl, could not help but taking a few appreciative sips. "Lovely," he said, distracted for a moment from the misery of existence. "Delightful!" "See?" shouted the P. "See?" She stood. She pointed her finger right at Rusco. "It's a rat! I told you that it was a rat! He was hanging from the chandelier, and now he's in Mama's soup!" The musicians stopped playing their guitars. The jugglers stopped juggling. The noble people stopped eating. The queen looked at Rusco. Rusco looked at the queen. Reader, in the spirit of honesty, I must utter a difficult and unsavory truth. Rats are not beautiful creatures. They are not even cute. They are, really, rather nasty beasts, particularly if one happens to appear in your bowl of soup with pieces of watercress clinging to its whiskers. There was a long moment of silence, and then Rusco said to the queen, "I beg your pardon." In response, the queen flung her soup into the air and made an incredible noise, a noise that was in no way worthy of a queen, noise somewhere between the neighing of a horse and the squealing of a pig, a noise that sounded something like "Nah!" And then she said, "There's a rat in my soup!" The queen was really a simple soul, and always, her whole life, had done nothing except state the overly obvious. She died as she lived. "There was a rat in my soup," were her last words that she uttered. She clutched her chest and fell over backwards. Her royal chair hit the floor with a thump, and the banquet hall exploded. Spoons were dropped. Chairs were flung back. "Save her!" thundered the king. "You must save her!" And all the king's men ran to try to rescue the queen. Risco climbed out of the bowl of soup. He felt that, under the circumstances, it would be best if he left. As he crawled across the tablecloth, he remembered the words of the prisoner in the dungeon, the regret that he did not look back on his daughter as he left. And so Risco turned. He looked back, and he saw that the princess was glaring at him. Her eyes were filled with disgust and anger. "Go back to the dungeon," was what the look she gave said to him. "Go back to the darkness where you belong." This look, reader, broke Risco's heart. Do you think that rats do not have hearts? Wrong. All living things have a heart, and the heart of any living thing can be broken. If the rat had not looked over his shoulder, perhaps his heart would not have been broken, and it is possible then that I would not have a story to tell. But reader, he did look. And that was the end of that chapter. So we actually saw a different reaction from Princess P with Despero and with this rat, which is very interesting. And now we know what happened to the mother. The mother happened to pass because she was so surprised that this rat showed up in her soup, she probably gave herself a heart attack. So she was so afraid of this mouse or this rat that she just died right in the banquet hall. And now we're going to find out what happens to this new character, Risco, whose name I can almost never say correctly. We're gonna see what happens to him next. What becomes of him after finding out that he looks back and Princess P looks like she absolutely hates him. So we're going to find out about that next.